All right. Good morning, everyone. It just at 10 o'clock, and I'm gonna wait to see if people trickle in here. But good morning, and thanks for joining us on the Central UP Regional Housing Partnership meeting. Um, we might have to do a little bit of juggling with the agenda. Christopher Lucier is going to be our guest speaker today. But I think he's not available until 10:15. So, um, Dottie, if I can ask you to go first, I'll share the lead abatement training flyer here on my screen, and then you can tell us a little bit more about this important training coming up. And
Sure.
um, yeah.
Sounds great. I'd be happy to. So this is the second opportunity that we've had to provide lead lead paint abatement training. Um, and the first time we did it was in August, and we didn't get a lot of contractors to participate. Of course, August is a right in the middle of the construction season, but these things do take a couple months to set up. So we started back, I think, in September now. And we have some training coming up in January 27th. Um, and the reason why this is so important is if anybody is accessing state or federal funds for homeowner rehabilitation or rental rehabilitation in buildings that were built on or before 1978 or considering it, your program will require that you follow lead-based paint procedures. And so you're going to need a lead abatement supervisor. So that is any Michigan professional that's going to be conducting um, rehabilitation on houses built on or before 1978 will have to have a lead abatement firm certification. And that's what this training is all about. Um, and even if you have workers that show up and they have the worker certification, that's not good enough. You have to have the supervisor certification. So there always has to be a supervisor on site when lead abatement work is being conducted. So we're starting at the top with the supervisor because we're able to bring this to our area for free. We're working with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. They will be they're assisting with they'll be doing the certification, but there's another agency coming from the Grand Rapids area that is going to be conducting the training. It's a 4-day commitment, which explains why we didn't get a lot of people excited about it in the middle of the construction season in August. But on the end of that, you will have an exam that you have to pass, that the contractors have to pass. Um, it's not a heavy exam. It's actually the instructor over that 4-day period works with all of the students to make sure that they understand what exactly is on the exam and what the correct answers are. So it's almost 100% pass every single time. And with that, it's about a 3-year certification. They're able to take that to other jobs. Let's see, and oh, it's going to be conducted in Marquette at the Michigan Works facility there by Econo Food, but it's now called Marketplace, I believe. And and then there's that registration, as Ryan has on the screen, talking about who to contact with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Service. Ty Liggins is his name. So does anyone have any questions?
And the flyer was included with the agenda send, but I'll send out a post-meeting email after this and include it in that as well. So if you can please help spread the word to anybody who may be working on rehabilitation projects, that would be great. I'll try to
Yes.
get a lot of people out to this meeting.
Right. It's really important to get our contractors trained for this now that the state of Michigan is really um, moving forward with a lot of these real rehabilitation programs. Um, because so much of our housing was built on or before 1978. And of course, those are the houses that are often the older houses are the ones that are more affordable and very likely young families, small children. There's a health component here too, and that's why Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is involved in this. Young children are very negatively impacted when exposed to lead dust, and so this is something that and once a home is abated, it's abated forever. The lead paint is no longer in residential house paint. I mean, it's still used in industry, but it is illegal to have it in residential housing paint. Um, so it's really important to get this out here and get our local contractors trained and able to bid on these projects. So please spread the word.
Thanks a lot, Dottie.
Mhm.
And I don't see that Christopher Lucier is here yet. Um, but we can go on to a different agenda item. So I'm going to, I got this bar in the way. I'm struggling to, there we go. So I modified or adapted a tool from Marquette County that they're using with some success. They have a housing tracking spreadsheet for new housing development projects. Um, I adapted it into a Google form, so it asks the questions that will directly pipe into this form. So when you go to the form page, it asks what central UP County the project is located in, what the project title is, project address, township or city, who's the primary developer, number of units proposed. You select the housing type, whether it's single family, duplex, triplex, so on. Does the development propose use any of the following legal tools, planned unit development, condominium, or subdivision development? Um, what is the intended result? Is it for sale units or for rent units or a mix? What household incomes is it intended to target? What's the estimated value of the project? And it has a long list of all the potential incentives that you can select if they're exploring or if they've secured any of these so far, and additionally some notes. And then it's supposed to uh, pipe into a spreadsheet that has all of this information that we can all access. So if you're in Schoolcraft County, you can see projects in Alger County that are going on that might be similar, and you can reach out to um, the EDO director there or the county there who submitted the project and find out more about it. Um, I think it would be a helpful tool just to provide awareness of the projects going on and and potentially tap into incentives for the projects if you're not aware of them. But I'd like to know what you think. If you think if this is something that partners would use across the region if it's wanted, or also if you have any other suggestions on things to include in it or modify in it. But I'm interested to know what you think.
Hi, Ryan. This is Victoria. I think it's a great idea.
Hey, Ryan.
Thanks.
Yeah, obviously you took it from Marquette County, which we're happy to share. It is awesome. And I will just say, I think it's really helps with the conversation here, right? To have a more comprehensive view of what's like in the pipeline. We get a lot of questions from actually developers, right? Like what else is going on, but we don't give them details, obviously, without permission from other developers. We are able to then tell them like, yep, there are other people looking at these areas. Here's where we're seeing a lot of pressure. Here's where we're not. Here's the other type of stuff that may impact the financial feasibility of your project. It just really opens up and makes us look like we have our crap together, quite frankly, right? I'm not going to swear on this, I swear. I swore on the radio the other week and I got in trouble.
It's
So
being recorded.
it's but but yeah, it's been really helpful. And so all the stuff that you have on here, we kind of added over time, as we realized we just kind of needed it for various types of conversations. So.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Hey, this is Karen Geniel from Mishta. And good afternoon, everyone. What a great idea for this form. I'm curious if like to Christopher and to Ryan, I'm curious how what was your communication strategy to roll this out and where does it sit? On your website or somewhere else, like how will you drive people and let them know you want them to do this? But boy, this could be really replicable to the other RHP leads.
Yeah, Ryan, I don't know kind of what your long-term intentions, Karen. Hi, by the way. It's good to see you again. So I have the plant from the conference actually sitting in our living room. I was thinking about you guys the other day. So it's been behind the scenes for us in Marquette County at this stage, but we're actually getting ready to roll out Housing Now 906, which is our private public housing partnership website. And we do intend to do an embedded Google map with the projects that are public. Right. So we're collecting stuff that is definitely not public yet. So we're still trying to figure out where that veil is. But
And this is the first I'm showing this. So right now it just lives on my own personal Google Drive. Um, and so I'm open to if people think it's valuable, then making it somewhere more permanent than my own personal Google Drive.
that's fair.
That's great, great. And Christopher, I would like a car decal in the shape of the UP that says Housing 906, please.
Yeah, I
That'd be
mean we could
awesome.
do that. It'll be $50, Karen. So that's we got to fundraise somehow, right?
Give me do you use Cash App, Venmo? What do you?
Cash discount, $50, $52 card. Yep. So it's
Thanks.
Ryan so this is on your personal. I was just trying to look see if you have like an embarrassing personal email address or anything, but I can't really tell. So you don't have like World Conqueror that you made like in middle school that you shouldn't be using. All right, just checking.
Black Dragon.
Is it really? That's
No.
awesome. Oh, damn. Yeah, this is awesome, dude. Yeah, we're kind of moving into I think that second phase of public sharing it via a map of some kind, but we're not there yet. But that's our plan.
All right. Um, let's see. And Christopher Lucier, are you here?
I am.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing now and pass the mic over to you.
Okay.
Um, And so I invite Christopher Lucier here to speak to us today on CDBG programs and relative to my neighborhood and the opportunities for funding through my neighborhoods and he's going to touch on the administration aspects too. So take it away, Christopher.
Okay. I will, quick, let me share my screen.
Just enabled it.
Okay. All right, is that showing up okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Chris Lucier. I am the Community Development Block Grant Manager in the Neighborhood Development Division at MISTA, and our division administers the My Neighborhood program. And I specifically provide oversight for the federal portion of those dollars. So, so coming today, I brought some slides with me that are from a presentation I gave to regional housing partnership leads. So, and maybe that was where Ryan saw it or heard about it, the topic, because it just might help explain a little bit. And so I figured I just would share a little bit about my neighborhood. I'm guessing some folks have already heard about my neighborhood or have some familiarity with it. I particularly want to cover the availability of community development block grant dollars, which those dollars can only be accessed by units of general local government, but those local governments can partner with a nonprofit partner or bring on a consultant to help them administer a program. And those dollars at the moment are plentiful. So we're trying to engage folks in making use of those funds. Let's see here. So my neighborhood is a blend of state and federal funding. So the state funds, and this last tranche of funds was, I think, a little over $58 million. We had a tranche of funds that went out in May that was about $60 million. And in both instances, roughly half of the funds were state funding and half the funds were community development block grant funding. State funds come from the Housing Community Development Fund. The way my neighborhood works, we have a regional funding strategy. The purpose of these dollars is to help resource the regional plans that all of you have been working on, and to support the goals of the statewide housing plan. And when I'm talking to regional housing partnership groups, I always emphasize the fact that we have not made a single grant without asking the question, how does this align with the goals of your regional housing plan? And everyone who does submit an application is required to tie their work to that plan. And we look forward to strengthening those ties as we move forward. My neighborhood also consolidates the numerous legacy housing programs that were operated out of the Neighborhood Development Division. My Hope, Mishtamad, NEP, a bunch of different programs that did various aspects of housing. And the idea is that this is a one-stop shop to come for those types of housing activities. So folks just propose their idea. They don't need to worry about a funding source going in. They can have some of that knowledge if they want, but really they propose an idea. We evaluate the idea and then pair an applicant with a funding source. The federal dollars, as I mentioned, are only available to non-entitlement local government applicants. And those folks can procure other partners to help them with their projects. When you're coming in for an application, there are 3 levels. We look at folks that have done 0 to 2 grants in the last 5 years or developed up to 2 units of housing or 2 housing projects as beginners. And so they can apply for up to $200,000. And then as you sort of scale up in experience, you can access larger amounts of money. So an intermediate applicant can go up to 400,000, advanced can go all the way up to 2 million. That's the cap for an application is $2 million. The other cap would be the amount of funds that are available in the region where you're at or doing the work. So that's another piece to be thinking about. And then any request over $400,000 requires a $1 for $1 for $1 match for every dollar over 400,000. So if you submit a proposal for $401,000, you would just need $1,000 in match. And then this map just shows where the entitlement communities are. And entitlement communities are communities that receive money directly from HUD. And so they're already receiving CDBG funds, and so we can't spend our CDBG funds in those same areas. We don't have any of those areas in the UP, so everyone should be able to apply for CDBG funds in the UP and in most areas of the state. And just in terms of the definition of a unit of general local government, it's a city, a county, a township, a village, or any other general purpose political subdivision of a state responsible for local governance and administration. Land banks have been found to, if they self-identify as a unit of local government, have been found to qualify as a unit of local government for CDBG funds. And then we have 3 activities that we're funding with CDBG funds. Homeowner rehab, where we can assist low and moderate income homeowners with needed repairs up to $40,000. Rental rehab, which provides funds to redevelop spaces in sort of the downtown or corridors into a downtown area. Typically, we're doing mixed use spaces with these funds, and the funds can only be used to do the residential portions of those buildings. And up to 7 units. So smaller rental rehab type projects. And then the last activity is reconstruction, which CDBG doesn't allow us to do any new construction. The one caveat to that is if you recently demolished something and want to build back new on that same site, it allows you to build another residential structure that's similar to what was there previously. Rent rehab and reconstruction tend to be a little trickier activities to implement. Reconstruction in particular, because you have to have a recent demolition. HUD requires that a property was demolished there within the last year or you plan to demolish. Again, we can't cover the cost of demolition and we don't cover the cost of acquisition. So the reconstruction activity really works best for entities that already hold title to property, or are implementing anti-blight programs. And it's a tool for them to be able to, add to their planning, and instead of just remove some blight from a neighborhood, plan to immediately replace it with a residence. So the probably 90% of our grantees right now, we have close to 40 of them are doing homeowner rehab projects. So that's where we've been spending a lot of our time in terms of just talking to folks. If local governments haven't done housing activities in a long time, or in a while, a way to get back into it is homeowner rehab. They tend to be easier programs to implement. And so that's where we're seeing a lot of the activity.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
On the homeowner rehab. So a local unit of government would apply for the funds and then sub-grant out the funds to homeowners to do the projects?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep. So yeah, if you were doing yeah, that's basically how it works. And so you're basically putting out applications, making announcements, taking in applications, income qualifying folks to make sure that they're eligible, seeing what kinds of needs they have, doing an inspection, writing a spec, depending on the scale of the rehab that you're doing. Sometimes these are kept really simple, so they don't involve a lot of, written specification work. And sometimes, if they're at 40,000, they can be a little more complex, in which case you want to have a good scope of work, a repair estimate, and then folks get bids from contractors to do the work and then have the repairs done. The municipality then would pay the contractors and get reimbursed from us for the expenses. That's sort of the process in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. And
Yeah,
I see Victoria George has a question too.
go for it, Victoria.
Yeah, so in that same program, so if it was homeowner rehab and the city applied for it or the county, would they need to have a list of those projects, or could they say, we want to do up to 400,000, so 10, maybe do 10 projects up to 40,000 per project, and
Yeah,
then pick them after, or do they already need to have like which homes these are going to be?
no, that's a great question. No, you don't have to have the sites chosen, and that's different from everything else that gets proposed in my neighborhood, because for almost every other type of activity that my neighborhood funds, you have to have a site identified and you have to be shovel ready. But for a homeowner rehab program, uh, you just have to sort of demonstrate you have the capacity to pull it off, and you're good. So you would request an amount of money and project how many units you want to do, and uh, then you would identify the sites later.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So you can go up to $40,000 per unit, but in practice, we see folks doing all kinds of different things. And so folks are tailoring their programs to meet their local needs and their local priorities. So if anytime you assist a homeowner at $10,000 or more, then there is a zero interest, zero payment forgivable loan document that goes, so that gets secured with a lien for 5 years. It gets forgiven; they never have to pay on it, but it does ensure that for funds over $10,000 or more, that they're staying in the home for 5 years, and that's going to be an affordable unit for 5 years. If it's under that amount, though, it's just considered a grant, and you can. So there are some folks that opt to do smaller interventions, provide smaller levels of assistance, and then not have the lien. So it's one thing folks think about. And then just in terms of qualifying folks, they must provide a proof of ownership. They have to have insurance on the home. They have to provide proof of income, and they have to just be current on their taxes at the time of application, or have a plan to pay off their taxes with their local treasurer. So, I have like a couple slides just on the benefits of doing this. I like to make the case to local government. I come from local government, and I did these programs for 20 years, and I also studied their impact in communities for 20 years, as long as I did them, along with other housing interventions. And the helping a family in need is often where we focus our attention, and that's appropriate. But there are a lot of other benefits to local communities that I like to just remind folks of. Much of this you'll already know, but I just like to remind, as people are thinking about the opportunity, whether it's right for them, a project like this demonstrates responsiveness to people in neighborhoods or in the outlying areas around your towns. So a lot of times if you're spending time on your downtown or some other improvements that you're making, folks in the neighborhoods or folks in other parts of the community might say, well, what about us? And sometimes it's just a great way to have some equity between where you're making those investments. We think of these investments as maybe a $10,000 investment in the home, but often it's actually much more valuable than that, because you're creating an opportunity for a family to act on a problem that exists now, but that they don't have the resources to address. And that same problem a year from now may be twice as much money to fix. And so it helps you to get out ahead of those. You can do the repairs in ways that create greater energy efficiency and reduce ongoing costs for family, and thereby increase the impact you're having. I come from the city of Battle Creek, where in 2013 and 14, we did an analysis that showed 30% of every property that we had to demolish or ended up on our vacant buildings registry had gone through an extended period of deferred maintenance, often because a senior was on a fixed income and couldn't take care of those costs themselves. And then later we were having to tear it down. And so, these kinds of programs can be a part of your housing preservation strategy so you're not losing units. This strategy pairs well with lots of other strategies. So if you're already doing code compliance, or if you're making an investment in a park, or if you're doing street repairs, or you have some other anti-blight activity, pairing it with homeowner rehab makes a lot of sense, and will layer these impacts on top of each other for greater effect. And you can, the NEP program Mr. Has done for years, would encourage folks to make an investment in a park and then help fix up the houses all around it, which I thought was pretty fantastic. The market's heating up for a lot of folks, and we're real focused on affordability, but some neighborhoods are getting hot for the first time in 50 years. And it creates an opportunity for a low-income family to actually build some wealth for the first time in their life. And the key is just keeping them in that home. And if they have a big ticket expense and you're able to come in there, stabilize them, keep them there for years while houses are gaining value, you're ensuring that they're having some wealth building going on, maybe for the first time. And the three others, supporting seniors, if you're able to help someone age in place and handle that big ticket item, but they have the resources to stay where they are, they've been there for a long time, it lessens the demand for new senior housing. Doing this kind of activity helps you build capacity as a community to do other housing activities. And lastly, in areas where you have neighborhoods that you want to stabilize, this is obviously to be a big part of that. That's my spiel. I'm happy to take any other questions you have. We're going to be doing another presentation in January and February, like next year, that goes much deeper into how to run a homeowner rehab program, and I'm happy to come back and give that some time or catch you some other way. I should throw up the one last thing I'll throw out is just how to apply. So the My Neighborhood page. So if you Google My Neighborhood, it's going to be the first hit, or you go to this website, there's a big green button that says apply now. So you can, 30 minutes from now, you could be applying for one of these great grants, right? Click the button, get started. If you want to learn more, the MISHDA CDBG website has a policy manual that's just chock full of information, templates, forms, how-tos, checklists, a lot of tools in there to help you think about how to put a program together and how to manage it. And then if you're interested in learning more, we do consultations with folks to help them think through their idea. Hit me up for a 15-minute consultation. I'd be happy to sit down with you and other stakeholders and just talk through what you'd like to do and maybe address some of your specific challenges. That's it.
So Chris, I have a question. So when it comes to housing and CDBG funds, so I kind of cut my teeth on the old county allocation program, right? So,
Yes.
and at that time, lead paint was like a really big deal. And so is that still a big deal? Because I'm not hearing that as being a real center front issue. And I'm wondering, we're kind of scrambling to make sure our contractors are trained and ready to go. And because these, there's the certification, the requirements for certification really come and go with the funding availability, right? Because otherwise they're not required to maintain that certification. So, are we doing the right thing, or do we not need to worry about this so much?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think lead is, especially like in the UP, I think lead abatement and how to handle lead concerns is like a top 5 issue if you're running one of these programs, right? So, let's see, Marquette is a grantee of ours and has been working on growing the base of lead abatement certified contractors. We've been working on helping them build some partnerships with MDHHS to come in and help cover the cost of doing training. So they've recently held some trainings and then try to build partners with different stakeholders in the UP who have a similar challenge, so that so folks are working together. And so there are some MDHHS grantees who do lead abatement work full time, who are very open to having conversations with other communities in the UP about how do we grow this. And so trying to be very collaborative rather than competitive. But it is a challenge. And honestly, I think at this point, a lot of those stakeholders who've been working on that, and then probably even yourself, because it's on your radar, you've been doing this work.
Mhm.
You're going to probably be way more advanced than I am. I think from our perspective, we do want to try and support all of you as you grapple with that. So as these issues are coming up, we've tried to think, can we connect you with someone? Is there something we can do to promote an activity? Is there some resource we have that can help solve that challenge? But no, lead abatement, the alternative is to design your program in a way where you're not disturbing lead paint elements. So
Mhm.
it can significantly decrease the scope of what you can tackle, but it doesn't mean that you can't still design a program with some meaningful interventions, roof
Mhm.
work, other things like that. So
Yeah.
does that speak to it?
It does, it does. It kind of makes me wonder about what all is required then as far as like the paperwork, right?
Sure,
So, as an administrator, you would have to, demonstrate that, contractors were certified if lead paint was uh
that's right.
risk assessment, lead risk assessment, all these things I feel like we don't have the workforce ready to take on those that kind of, they don't have the technical capability of taking on those requirements with this program, and that's where I keep getting a little concerned, is that we need to get our engineers aware of a lead risk assessment uh requirement, and then of course lead clearance, and then contractors certified to do lead work. And because I would imagine that's part of the paperwork, is it still part of the paperwork that
Sure.
demonstrate per project? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they're doing, yeah, I mean, you have to make a lead determination. So, are we going to be doing work that would qualify as lead work? And then how are we going to, like, there's a this, there's a little bit of process to it in terms of determining the level of lead. Is it internal controls or lead abatement? And then yes, hiring the right professional to do the work. And all that does have to be documented. And it probably in the county allocation days where you had funds coming in regularly and you had a program you were going to implement year after year, you would start to build that capacity around lead work over time, and it was there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And since we've had these intervening years where we haven't been doing that kind of work, we've lost a lot of that capacity to
Right.
manage that kind of paperwork and to do that kind of lead work. And that's part of the challenge and part of why we're struggling a little bit to get the CDBG dollars out the door. It's not unexpected, right? We need to build some of that capacity back.
Okay.
And what I would throw out there is these my neighborhood funds. It's more money than we ever had through county allocation. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, county allocation was $11 million across the state, I think, for housing activities. This is $30 million. So we did it twice this year. And and we're looking for partners in communities. I mean, you're it, right? I mean, it's not like there's some other group of folks out there. It's the local governments that we work with. So it may not have the same process tied to it that was as reliable. And I can understand why that would make people think. But the money is there. And if you've got the ideas, thinking about this is something, how do we get started now and how do we build this? And then how do we do it for years to come? I think that's not a bad way to think about it. So
So I got a question from chat. So would it make more sense for the county to coordinate all of its municipalities rather than individual cities and townships applying for this?
in many instances it might, but this is the decision you want to make at the local level. So a county can do exactly that piece and decide to be the lead grantee for the county. But they could have a municipality or a township that wanted to submit their own grant, and at that point, you could just sort of say, "Hey, why don't you work in your municipality? We'll work in the outlying areas." And we have counties and cities that are doing exactly that, where they split up the work, and there's a little bit of negotiation that happens. You can access more money if you come in separately, right? Because that threshold of beginner, intermediate, advanced will apply to each of you separately. So that's one consideration. So some folks have said, well, we would like to have more resources. Let's try to do 2 grants instead of 1. And others have said, just for the capacity's sake, let's just work through the county. And that's the best way to do it. So it's really a decision that has to be made locally. And there's some benefits, you know, either way, depending on what your priority is.
Great, thank you. I have a question of my own. So, um, could a CDBG eligible entity apply for it and partner with a non-CDBG eligible entity and then have the non-CDBG eligible entity administer the program?
Sure. And the way that would need to look is you would need to procure that like a contractor. So not as like a subrecipient or not just being a pass through for the dollars. So you would still have some administrative oversight responsibilities, but most functions can be can be contracted out. So if you have a trusted local nonprofit housing partner, or you know, you could hire them to do the work. You do have to go through a procurement process, so I recommend, you know, it's great to check in with those folks to see if they're interested, but you do have to go through this competitive selection process, which is a little kind of wonky, and try to get solicit bids for it. So you'd put together a little scope of work and bid that out. But we have lots of examples. I would say more than half of our grantees currently are using either a consultant to help them administer or have contracted with a nonprofit housing partner to do the work. So, and we have some tools to help you think through that. If you decide to look into this, like we have a chapter in our policy manual on hiring third-party administrators, and in there's a template administration plan, grant administration plan that lists out all the different kinds of responsibilities and then helps you sort of work through who will do what. And I just find that that's real helpful for folks that are writing an RFP or trying to think about what can I do in-house and what do we want, what do we need some help with, you know?
Thanks, that's helpful. I just know that our local units of government up here have very little capacity to take on extra work, and there are some organizations like Superior Watershed Partnership who
Yeah.
do this kind of work in other areas, and so maybe a partnership like that could be valuable.
Yep. And you can include that in the application, and the way I would do it is to say, hey, we're going to procure a partner to help us administer. We know that we have these partners locally, and this is the capacity they have. And you explain it that way, and then it sort of builds some confidence that you have a plan to implement, even if you don't have the capacity on your team. And then also that you're clear that you'll have to procure them if you're awarded the funds.
So I have that kind of raises a question. So then if we're the procuring agency, then ultimately we are the fiduciary and we're responsible for making sure that every project is implemented according to CDBG guidelines, right? State federal
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day,
Okay.
you're the grantee, and
Okay.
you're ultimately
Yep.
responsible. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope this has been helpful or what you were looking for. And I'm happy to meet with folks individually if folks are interested at some point, want to connect with us, or to come back another time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. This was certainly helpful, and
Yeah.
I think we would be interested in future training too on administration. So thank you very much, and hope
Definitely.
you have a great day.
All right.
And you're welcome to stay on too if you want.
Okay.
All right. Let me switch over to our next agenda item. All right, so my goal with this agenda item is to find out where our county-based priorities are in regard to developing affordable housing and to find out where your focus has been, and then to, well, I'm expecting us to have some remainder funds in our RHP grant. And those funds would be eligible for some kind of investment in non-housing development. I'm not clear on how much is going to be remainder, but I'm assuming it's going to be in the 25 to $30,000 range. And then on top of that, next year, we'll be eligible for a RHP Actions grant from MISTA for our RHP of $25,000. So that would be eligible for the same types of activities. So I'm going to walk through this, and this is going to be kind of interactive. So if I could get maximum participation, I would really appreciate it. And then I'll move on. So, all right. Okay, so we're using Mentimeter. And so you can participate in this by going to menti.com. That's menti.com. So open up another browser window and you'll see this presentation in it. And you'll be able to interact that way. So you can also, if you want, do it on your phone and take a picture of this QR code, and they'll take you to it as well. So I already see people are liking on it, and that's great. All right, so we're gonna do a test of it real quick. What's your favorite color? And I only have 6 selections here, but
Ryan, why isn't scarlet and gray an option? Probably the only one.
Hey,
I
Ryan, can you
agree
put
with
in
you,
the chat,
Christopher.
Yeah, Kathy, say again.
Thanks, Michelle.
you put in the chat box the web address again. By the time I pulled up my QR code app, it was already gone on your screen.
Sure. Hold on, I'll get up.
I got a new phone, of course, and it has to reload everything.
Hmm.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, it seems like nobody had problems with that, or if anyone is experiencing problems, let me know.
What's the code to join?
Um,
That's what, when I pull it up the website, it asks the code to join.
4606 3609.
Okay, thanks.
All right, cool. It's working. So we're going to move on to our next question. So, in your opinion, what are the top housing challenges your county is facing? And this is supposed to be just a short answer type question. So I'll give it a little bit of time here, but if you want to vocalize it too, then. So I see lack of workforce, affordable options, availability and cost, quantity and cost, cost of construction, shortage of labor to build, commercial lenders, capacity to administer housing programs, unavailability of single-family homes, coordination of housing resources, construction costs, and availability and cost. I also see housing challenges often stem from rising prices and stagnant salaries, making it hard for people to afford housing. Workforce housing to purchase and rent, availability to charge higher rent, costs to build, long zoning and development processes. It adds expenses to developers, and lack of smaller format options. Interest rates are higher than we're used to. Contractors availability, too many short-term rentals, costs of rental and quality of rentals, and misinformed public. Those are all certainly options, or certainly challenges. Thank you. All right, so of the goals in our housing action plan, which one are you most focused on making progress? And I shortened these to kind of sum it up into a small digestible sentence. So enhance the housing and enhance the effectiveness of the housing ecosystem, increase the supply of affordable housing up to 120%, increase rehabilitation and preservation of existing housing stock, enable missing middle and workforce housing development, and reduce the rent burden for the region's ALICE population by developing targeted assistance programs. And then I wanted to leave a spot for other, just in case our action plan needs to be updated again. If you have any ideas of things that are not included in our housing action plan, we're heavily focused on housing development goals. But maybe there's something else. All right, we got a pretty good spread here. I see the most in increase rehabilitation and preservation of housing stock, but also increase the supply of affordable housing up to 120%. And notable that enable missing middle and workforce housing development is up there too. And reduce the rent burden for the region's ALICE population by developing targeted assistance programs. We haven't really done much with this one through the RHP. The My Neighborhood grant has been focused on developing new units and rehabilitating older units, but we haven't really thought up an idea of how we can target this ALICE population and develop targeted assistance programs. So if you have ideas for that, I'd be very eager to hear them. Who did answer that one? Anyone? Okay, we're gonna move on. All right. If the RHP had additional funds to spend on a non-housing development investment, how would you spend it? And I came up with some options here that I think could be valuable. And then just yesterday, I learned on the RHP leads call that CEDAM was expecting to have a real estate development boot camp here in Marquette in September. So we could potentially subsidize all of those registrations to this event, and so that could be another option that I did not add into this list, but I'm interested to see what you all select here. And you can choose more than one option. You distribute your points in increments of 10. So I'm seeing this creation of pre-approved missing middle housing plans surging ahead here. Christopher, can you speak on what Marquette County is looking into?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about yet. I think so we're looking at it as a concept, and we're actually applied for grants in addition to supporting some other housing work that includes funds around this. But the concept is that there are existing pre-approved missing middle housing plans from MML and MEDC, some other folks. We've just kind of found they don't really fit up here in particular. So what we're looking to do is actually pilot it with one of our communities in Marquette County, work with the county building department to get as darn close as we can to stamped blueprints. You could change like your colors and your materials to a certain degree. And as long as you stick within those, that you're just good to go, right? And you cut out all those soft costs and all that upfront stuff. Likely looking at probably, I'm going to guess, duplexes and triplexes probably, and maybe some ADU versions, but it's all dependent on funding at this stage. It's been really successful though in other areas of the country.
So do you think this could be scalable to other communities once the community you're working with adopts it? Obviously, there's a little bit that has to be done with zoning to, you know, for each community to allow it, but do you think that could be an option?
Yeah, I think it's totally scalable, right? I mean, we were really hoping the ones that were done downstate were scalable up here. And they're not. I think our similarities are a little closer. I don't think we're going to pilot it in the city of Marquette, if that helps. I think we're going to pilot it hopefully in the West End, which should make that a little more applicable to the rest of the UP. So, yeah, 100%. I think is the answer.
Great. Well, we're interested in staying abreast of that, so yeah, we'll follow up on it.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all for your participation in this. And if you want, I'll keep this open. If there's any other people who were not able to attend here today, we're recording the session, so I'll keep it open, and they can provide their input too at a later date.
You know, it kind of screwed up my scoring when it did it, but I just want to make a comment on there. I know you've got senior population study, and I never thought that much about it until I saw it on here. But I really do think that's critical, since we have 50 plus is our average age, for example, in our county and many counties. And I don't think we've really ever, we talk about it briefly and it just kind of flies by, but we never talk about it. You know what I mean? It's like, what, you know, what are you gonna do about it? It's mostly been conversations about affordable. You know, I think sometimes, yes, affordable, but also you're gonna have a lot of older people and it's just getting older. So, what's our plan?
Yep.
No, a lot of times nobody's got a real plan. I mean, I know Marquette County, you know, they tend to be younger, other than probably Negaunee, Ishpeming, right? But you know, city of Marquette.
Sure.
But I know Munising's getting older all the time, and every one of our surrounding communities, and we have a lot of folks that are, you know, and I think across whether it's Ontonagon, whether it's Iron River, or whether it's any of those Luce County, Schoolcraft, probably all those, I think their average age is all around the same as ours, which is pretty old. I don't say pretty old, I'm over 50, but they're getting older. We don't talk about it much.
And Kathy, I'll say like in Marquette, like we're looking at it from the perspective of like, hey, people want to stay here, right? But we also want to put them in homes so they get out of their existing homes, right? So it's a little more of a selfish motive than just helping them stay here. I want them out of where they're at,
Yeah.
right? So I can sell that house. You know, that's how Aaron and I got our house, right? Like folks were in it for 30 plus years. You know, if they had nowhere to go, we wouldn't have the house. So
You know, though, you know, that's right. But my argument to that sometimes too is locally, a lot of times people say, well, we get people out of their house. People need to understand a lot of those people that are older,
They don't want
their
it.
house been paid for a long time.
Mhm.
So they have no payments, they have very low bills, yada, 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 you know.
but eventually they don't want the maintenance though, right? That's what happened with ours.
Yeah, but
They
if they
wanted ours.
want to rent something and it's 1,000, 1,500, you know, I see Karen shaking her head, you know, if it's something like that, that's a hard sale. I
Mhm.
mean, I know, you know, a lot of them are like, well, shoot, you know, heck, I'll find somebody to mow my lawn or to shovel or whatever it may
Right.
be, instead of paying $1,500 a month for something that's going to be a fourth of the size of what I currently have. You know what I mean? And I'm going to have a bunch of neighbors, you know, on either side of me. So that's comments that I hear, but it's kind of under the radar. You know, you don't
Mhm.
see those a lot of times out there on any report or anything. It's chatter when you talk to
Sure.
people. Yeah.
I agree, Kathy. Yeah, it's, you know, more and more, you hear older people like just working on folks' master plans, you know, and when you
Mhm.
start touching on the population, the demographics of the community and how there's going to be this, you know, wave of aging population and start getting, you know, planning commissioners to start thinking about, so what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are we looking at here? And, yeah, nobody really knows. But I think there's just like no one solution. But I think you know, what I hear from the seniors that are participating in those kinds of conversations is that they don't want to have to leave their community. You know, even if they had to, you know, go live in in a facility that offered, you know, their ability to, you know, get around easier, you know, understanding that a lot of our housing stock is 2 stories and the primary restroom or bathroom is upstairs and, you know, those kinds of limitations for folks. Um, so, you know, what I've been kind of gently proposing to some communities is like, you know, I don't know that we have to have, when you're talking about, I'm going to say Onoda Township in Nelja County, when you're talking about a rather large township geographically, but a very small population, if you had a multifamily housing that was designed with, you know, to you know, for people with some physical limitations as they age, sort of thing, and also some you know, care providers. Maybe it's not a 24-hour like a you know, registered nurse 24 hours a day kind of thing, but sort of those light services.
Mhm.
In a management system to be able to manage that building without it being a major, I think, you know, a lot of elderly people are very afraid that they're going to end up in a, you know, these large aging facilities where they're
Mhm.
essentially removed from their communities and completely forgotten. And
Mhm.
understandably so, because when I go to visit those facilities, I think about that when I see those people, you know, lined up at the door, just watching anyone come through the door, hoping it's someone for them. right? So, so it does. Communities do need to come together and think about how they want to deal with that.
Or even if it's a small development with smaller houses that has a
Mhm.
maintenance, like a condo association, we've got a possible development that possibly might happen in Munising Township. It's a little more like that. And you could possibly buy into it for a second home situation too, if you wanted to.
Mhm.
But I think, you know, if somebody's been living in a house and they have it paid off for years and years, an apartment is not appealing
Mm-mm.
a lot of times. And in a lot of places, you know, are very expensive, and doing that sales pitch to somebody that I don't want to say is on a fixed income, but you know what I mean? They're, you know, they're
Mhm.
watching their nickels and dimes, right? They're not just wanting to spend a lot in rent. And if they had their own kind of place, and like you said, a little bit of services that are close by, you know, and
Mhm.
somebody maintaining on the property, that would be more appealing. I'm going off on a tangent. I know we are, but
No, and I think that coupled with age in place rental housing rehabilitation programs that are targeted toward aging in place. I think that's another one. And then really promoting with communities, you know, thinking about you know, small businesses that actually, you know, we will actually have enough folks that need those services that you could probably make a pretty good living, you know, just doing lawn care and housing, you know, light construction and housing, painting houses, lawn care and then snow shoveling in the wintertime. And, you know, it probably work out pretty good. So you know, those
I
are
think there's going to be a lot of labor and possibly potential opportunities for small business and things like that that are going to service that population
right.
that
Right,
we
I think
haven't
so too.
seen pop up yet, but I think it's going to need to if you want people to stick around, unless you want them to move down south.
Yeah,
Well,
and I'm more inclined to think that will happen sooner than advancing our public transportation. You know,
yeah,
because that's for some reason we just, you know, I mean, I think Alger County has a great system, but I look at other areas in our region is very limited, you know, for as far as providing assistance to people that need non-medical um, uh, transportation, I mean, non-emergency medical transportation
yep.
and those kinds of things.
Just
So,
grocery shopping or whatever.
mhm,
Yeah,
right,
yep.
I think it's important to note too that our senior age population is starting to outpace our working age population too, which is
right,
critical. Like who's going to fill these roles that of taking care of this aging population? I think
right,
it's a major challenge that's on the horizon that we haven't fully recognized yet is coming.
right.
Ryan, I going on a different, but I did like your option of possibly covering the cost of the CEDAM boot camp. And especially with it being located up here in the UP and Marquette, that would be a great opportunity for a lot of us to attend that. And it would be here locally.
Yeah, I think that would be really valuable, and that would be an easy to accomplish investment.
Yeah,
So
I
that
would
has my
echo
vote.
that. We
Yep.
we paid for a couple of Marquette County developers to go to the last boot camp, but then we had to also incur all the costs of travel, right? So if they're here, it goes a lot further.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What
Michelle,
is,
did you want to say anything? Or did you have anything to share?
No, I think you did very well, Ryan, so thank you. And looking at the boot camp idea, I think that is very valuable for our communities and our younger leaders that are coming about to attend. I attended it myself, and I was the first round through a different organization, but it is a real tool that the communities can use.
Cool. thanks for the endorsement. And
I have one question.
Amy
Ryan.
Berglund says, in case you have not seen this, population conversation is on point with data. And she posts a link. Domestic migration drives Michigan rural population growth from 2020 to 2023. And there's an upcoming presentation at the EDO CDC virtual meeting. The state demographer is going to be there in February. So that sounds really good. Thank you, Amy.
That is really good, for sure.
So would anybody like to discuss any other items? Or anything else to share?
Ryan, this is Michelle. Do we want to talk about getting our housing ecosystem committee members together and the leads from the other committees?
Yeah, and I guess if I recall right, our housing ecosystem was made up of me, Bill DeGroot, who had his last day yesterday at Chocolate Township, so he's no longer with us. Sean Hobbins and Sharon Mackey were on the housing ecosystem. I think if we do that, we should rebuild that group and welcome new members to it.
Right. I think we need to have our initial meetings to see who is not at the table so that we can get organized and invite the areas that aren't there.
I'd be in support of that.
Okay. Should we look at sending out a meeting poll for the first one, and that could be face to face, and then go on with a plan of action so that we have some reportable outcomes going forward?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
What do you think? February?
No, I think our initial discussion should be in January because of you're going to have windows of opportunity for funding and making sure that we have identified areas so that we're not competing against the money. There is a lot of money, but we're talking about then coordinating with the cities, villages, and so on in order to have the CDBG funds available for homeowner rehab and so on. So I think we need to look maybe in the middle of January.
Okay, I'll get a meeting date poll out and we'll put our heads together on who should be invited to that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other thoughts or discussions that people want to have? Okay, well, seeing as there's none, I'm at the end of my agenda, so we can conclude this a little bit early and you can get about your day.
Thank you.
So
Happy
thank you
holidays,
all.
everyone.
Yeah, happy
Yep.
holidays, guys.
Happy holidays.
Have a great
Happy
day.
holidays.
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 Bye.